Hey guys, it's me, Mr.250, and welcome back to Banshee's Last Cry. This might be the last video. I'm not sure how long all this is going to take. I know it takes a little while from the playing side, but from an edited viewpoint, I think we might be almost done. Relatively speaking, like an episode or maybe two left. I might even do a double episode if it's not too much longer. Anyway, so today we are doing what I like to call the video game section, or what does this guide like to call it? This guide calls it the Labyrinth chapter. That makes it sound boring. When in reality, while it's nothing like the main story in the slightest, I still find it to be entertaining at least. So, this first ending we're going to get started with, and what we say is, at the beginning, we say, no way, I'm just getting started, and usually we decide, we pull it back a bit, we're like, okay, well, how about just one more time? But what if instead we said, heck yeah, let's go all night long, I shouted, knowing that was what she wanted. Let's go all night long. The two of us headed up to the mountain and decided to try a run Grace had her eyes on earlier. It was a triple-back diamond course, with the ominously long name of Ultra Expert Special Thunder Dragon Warrior. Say that 12 times fast. This is amazing. Yeah. The run, pockmarked with scary-looking Mongols, was so steep that it was practically vertical. On top of that, it was also extremely icy. With the falling snow, I couldn't see more than a few feet in front of me. Woohoo! It was like a run from a nightmare, littered with charred and smoking remnants of groaning skiers struck down by vengeful lightning. Are you okay? Grace asked worriedly. Yeah, sure. Here goes. With a cool smile, I took off down the mountain. I am the warrior! Twisting my lips to avoid the Mongols, which I have no idea what they are because I have never skied before, I shot down the hill like an arrow. Hi-ya! Coming in fast on the are you making this up on the powwow? I had a Mongol, got some fat air, and pulled a triple backflip. Yeah, sick bro, booyah! Cried someone from a nearby lift chair. Everyone else on the slope stared in silent admiration. That was the greatest feeling ever. That's right. I was an Olympic snowboarder. I shredded the nyar and hit some sick tricks, yo. The gold medal was just a matter of time. Come on, Max. I heard Grace cheering me on. The wind was so cold I could feel my face freezing. Just a little more and I'd have my gold medal, but I felt like I was freezing to death. Hey, Max, come on. Something hit my face and my eyesight blurred. Huh? What was that? A face floated dimly before my eyes. Focusing with all my will, it finally sharpened into Grace's head. Are you okay? I saw white clouds behind her. Apparently I was lying on my back looking straight up. What happened? I asked as I struggled to sit up. You don't remember? You went off course, but you kept on going and slammed into this tree. Are you hurt? I looked up and saw an enormous birch tree in front of me. I was half buried in snow, but after a quick check, I found that I was lucky enough not to have any serious injuries. With some help from Grace, I finally managed to pull myself out of the snow and get creakily up on my feet. Why don't we call it a day? We still have tomorrow, so, yeah. Even nodding made my head throb with pain. You still a little woozy, so I'll drive, okay? No way, you'll get us killed, you woman, and you're driving. I shouted almost hysterically. Killed? You don't have to exaggerate like that, Max. I'm not that bad of a driver. Well, alright. I don't know, I just have a bad feeling about it. With that, I decided to leave the driving to Grace after all. After we loaded her gear into the SUV, I got into the passenger seat. I could tell Grace was scared about driving, which only fueled my own anxiety. Grace, you've got a license, right? Well, it's kinda suspended. I got in too many accidents. What? I hadn't even fastened my seatbelt before the car took off with a sudden jolt. Grace, hold on, I screamed in fear. Let me drive after all. But Grace replied, a serious look on her face. I'm fine. Look, I play Ultimate Racer all the time down at the movie theater. Oh well, if she can handle a tough game like that, then, I guess she'll have no problems. Wait, what am I thinking? Just as I shouted that out, something suddenly sprang into our headlights. Ah! Grace jerked the steering wheel hard to the side. The car went off the road, and we plowed into a pile of snow. The seatbelt bit deeply into my shoulder, and my breath stopped in my throat. Neither of us could speak for a moment. Did you see that? Grace whispered, looking straight forward. Yeah, it looked like a red-eyed woman dressed in all white. Were my eyes playing tricks on me? Was it some kind of albino bear or something? Grace screamed, A Banshee! Banshee? What, like in the Irish ghost stories? I asked with a laugh. Grace shook her head, her eyes filled with fear. No, they're not just stories. My uncle was attacked by one when he was little. It screamed at him, and his skin sliced right open. He showed me the scar. It was about 2 inches long. He was probably just messing with you, Grace. Anyway, let's get this car back on the road. You think so? Now I'm starting to wonder. Muttering to herself, Grace backed the car up, got back in the road, and started driving again. Yeah. I first met Grace this summer working at the mall. I'd been recruited to help out with this kid's superhero show set up by my company. Grace was playing the superheroine, and I was the villain, Squid Man. She had to defeat. After beating me, she knocked me to the ground and then kicked me over and over. Each time she did, I had to scout, Squidgy! The kids loved it, but when I think about it now, I get depressed. Eventually, we arrived at the inn. I drove the humiliating memories from my mind and exited the car. The inn was run by Grace's aunt and uncle. It was called the Snowplow Inn. Huh? I tilted my head to the side. What was the name? What are you saying? Did they change the name or something? Change the name while we were out on the slopes? Are you sure you're okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Snowplow. It's close, but I'm not sure it's right. Just the journey between the car and the front door was enough to cover us in snow. Welcome back. Mr. Forrest greeted us warmly as we stepped inside. But there was something unidentifiably different about him. In fact, the inside of the inn looked like it had changed somehow too. Maybe I'm exhausted, I muttered to myself. But when I got up to the second floor, I saw that even the position of our rooms had changed. No way, I shouted. I know where we are. The room layout changes every time you go in. It's like a roguelike inn. Grace and I turned around and stared at the door that connected to the basement. Somewhere down there was a treasure that no one had ever found. Let's go find that treasure, I said in a heroic voice. It's gonna get weird, don't worry. Treasure? What kind of treasure? So, it's either I think it's a yucky box, I think it's a sicky box, or I think it's a lucky box filled with happiness. Well, happiness is good, right? Ooh, wonderful. Come on, let's start searching. Grace and I passed through the basement door and descended into the labyrinth, one from which no one had ever returned alive. Interesting music, right? So yeah, if you haven't guessed it yet, this is basically the ending where we completely stray from anything possibly kind of sort of realistic in nature. And just have a little bit of fun. Maybe if it was like, because it's kind of, the way you have to reach it, you have to basically do everything else in the game before you can get to this chapter. So, it kind of makes sense as like an extra chapter for anyone else who's just kind of interested in the, in the game a little bit and their style of writing. So that's kind of cool. But at the same time, I don't know, I wish I had something a little bit more spectacular for the ending, which is unfortunate because this Let's Play is going in on a little bit of a tame note, I'd have to say, compared to the rest of the game. But that's kind of how you have to play it. The first floor. As we went down the stairs, we were assaulted by a powerful freezing wind. But it wasn't just cold. It was damp and musty like the air from a tomb. Maybe we should just go back, Grace said in a soft, frightened voice. What are you talking about? This is just the first floor. Suddenly, I was interrupted. Monsters have appeared. Goblins. Standing in front of us was a group of hunched-over, gibbering monsters that could only be goblins. Eek! Grace shouted, screamed, Max, do something. Okay, stand back. We're going to be doing all of these basically at some point, but let's start with I delivered a super punch. Ah, so that's what goblins sound like. But this is no time for admiration. The goblins counterattack. 1-2 punch. 1 damage. Ha, mosquito bite. I'll show you what a real punch looks like. Corkscrew Ultra Magnum Cross Counter Punch. The goblins flashed white and disappeared. You gained experience. You went reach level 2. Okay, we got these guys on the run. Wait, the goblins had money? Look at this. Nothing but copper pieces. That's pathetic. They probably found it left over in a vending machine. 3 copper. We collected the money and continued on. After proceeding forward for a bit, we came across another staircase going down. Nodding to Grace, I began to slowly descend. The second floor. The second floor of the basement was dark and gloomy, making it hard to see. Isn't there a light somewhere, I muttered to myself? At that instant, the area suddenly got brighter. Oh, that was nice of them. Eek, Max, behind you! At the sound of Grace's shriek, I frantically turned around. Standing there was a giant shadow wreathed in fire. Hang on a second. Isn't this a little too scary for the second floor? It should be like slimes and mushroom thingies, right? But complaining and moaning about the poor game balance wasn't going to help at this point. Thinking he might be weaker than he looks, I attacked. A tongue of flame licked out of me and I was suddenly engulfed in fire. I felt my hair, my clothes, and then the flesh of my body start to burn. I tried to extinguish the flames by rolling in the ground, but I soon lost consciousness. Roasted alive. Game over. Poor us. We just didn't make it. Alright, so let's back up a bit. And, these are going to be very fast. Like, there's about 10 or 15 of these that we're going to be doing. But I'm betting we're going to rattle these off very quickly here. Alright. So, instead of doing a super punch, let's try a flying kick. Von Damme kick. What was that? Huh? You don't know who Jean-Claude Van Damme is? Nope, never heard of him. Okay, let's change that then. Besides, there might be copyright infringement issues. Jackie Chan kick. It's a hit. One of the goblins was pushed back. For some reason, there was a bed of spikes right there. The goblins fell down and exploded an instant later. You gained experience. You reached level 2. Okay, we got these guys on the run. Wait, the goblins had money. Ugh, stupid copper money. And then, oh, it's getting light in here. Oh my gosh. Let's run. Even if I had a weapon on me, this guy looked way out of my league. Grace, run! The fire demon was big but slow, so it was fairly easy to get away. By the time we reached a fork in the dungeon, the demon was well out of sight. The path to the right was dark, with a dank sewer-like smell. The path to the left was brighter, and the air felt drier. Which way should we go? Let's go to the left. As we proceeded, it gradually got brighter. The exit must be nearby, I said, eagerly longing to once again breathe fresh air. But we're at least 2 floors underground, Grace pointed out. Studying the path before us, I saw that the dungeon took a turn. It looked as if light was just streaming in from around there. We hurried ahead and turned to the corner. Oh no! Another fire demon! So that's why it was brighter. Frantically we tried to turn back, but the first fire demon was headed our way. We were trapped! Grace and I were burned evenly on both sides, like a sausage on a Foreman grill. Oh, darn it. Look, it's a UFO, I said, pointing behind them. Huh? Where? Grace and the goblins looked up excitedly where I pointed. Geez, Grace. I was just trying to fake them out. Realizing they were tricked, the goblins ran at us, their foul breath stinking up the air. One of them wrapped its powerful hands around my throat. Look, it's the Loch Ness Monster. The moment Grace shouted, the fingers loosened in their grip. Whoops, huh? Nessie? Where? Finding the monster in a place like this. How lucky can you get? Max, you idiot. I was just trying to fake them out. Darn, what was I thinking? Loch Ness is in Scotland. Even if there was a monster back there, it couldn't be my beloved Nessie. By the time I realized it was too late. The sharp claws of the goblin stabbed into my throat. Max. If what, Max? But I could no longer speak through the choking blood. As the world dimmed and I began to lose consciousness, I had one final thought. If there was a monster back there, what would it be called? Since this was the roguelike inn, maybe Rogie? That was the last thought reverberating in my mind. In the history of games, this might be the most pathetic of all deaths. Rogie. Alright, let's be a bit smarter. I grabbed the goblin's arm and twisted upwards. Help! What the? You can talk? Yes, well, it depends on the situation. Oh, as I was saying, help! What do you mean help? Are you really asking me for help? You attacked me. What do you want from me? Give me a strong weapon or something, and I'll help you. A strong weapon? A strong weapon. The goblin took off his pack and off his shoulder and began rummaging through it. He produced a steel ball connected by the handle to a sturdy by a chain to a sturdy wooden handle. It looked like a weapon from any run-of-the-mill RPG. It's like a morning star, but it doesn't have those spiky things. Right. The spiky things are pretty dangerous, so we had them removed. I call this a morning moon. Geez, man, it's a weapon. It's supposed to be dangerous. You just ruined it. Don't you have anything stronger? Something stronger? How about this? It's a sword with magical effects. Whoa, magical effects, huh? Nice. What kind? It's a Falchion, I'm hoping I said that right, with a sleep spell, so it's called Halcyon. Sometimes it even causes hallucinations. Oh, I see. That's a bad pun. It doesn't exactly ignite my fighting spirit. Don't you have something with a tougher name, like Dragon Slayer or Winchwower? Nope, sorry, that's all I got. Just then, I spotted another sword hidden away on his backpack. Hey, show me that one. Huh? That? No, that's no good. Don't give me any lip, goblin. Show it. Pushing away the goblin's hand, I grabbed the sword out of the backpack. It was a Japanese samurai sword. A sheet of paper was stuck to the scabbard. On it was written the name Muramasa. Hey now, look at this little beauty. I think I'll be keeping this. No, please, you can't take that. Oh, come on. Don't be so stingy. It's not that. If you draw that sword, something terrible is going to happen. Oh, that's rich. You think I'm gonna fall for that, old one? It's true, you gotta believe me. So, I decided it probably wasn't a lie after all. Okay, I believe you. I'll just settle for this Halcyon Falchion thing. Thanks, seriously, thank you. Wiping the sweat off his forehead, the goblin left. He sure looked relieved. I wonder if something terrible really would have happened. Yeah, probably. Anyway, let's go. We proceeded forward and came to a stairway leading down. Okay, Grace. It's going to get serious from here on in. I'm ready. With that, we started down the stairs. The second floor. More or less the same thing. Hang on a second, isn't this a little too scary? Maybe he's weaker than he looks. Besides, you've got that new sword. At some point, Grace had backed way off. She was now shouting advice to me from 30 feet away. Oh well. Now, feel the bite of my goblin-forged Hellblade Halcyon. I swung the magic sword at the fire demon. Halcyon's effect was immediate. Before the blade even reached the demon, it cast a powerful sleep spell on me. Then I remembered the goblin's words. He'd said it had a sleep spell, but it didn't specify who it was cast on. I was tricked! Just before I collapsed onto the ground in a deep sleep, I felt intense pain as my body was consumed by fire. Well, that sucked. It was definitely a lie. Be serious. Everyone knows that the Muramasa is always the strongest weapon in the game. It's like the law or something. Which I think... What does Muramasa mean? Okay, so apparently Muramasa was originally named after a famous swordsmith. However, a little bit more from the Wikipedia page. It's also been told that once drawn, a Muramasa blade is to draw blood before it can return to its scabbard, even to the point of forcing its wielder to wound himself or commit suicide. So basically it's a demonic blade, as a general whole in most lores. Which I was fairly certain of, but I wanted to make sure of before I said it. Who decided that anyway? The goblin refused to let go of the Muramasa blade, and the negotiations descended into a tug of war. Hey, you shut your mouth. Are you arguing with Robert Woodhead, the god of RPGs? Now let go. Tearing the sword away from the goblin, I pulled it out of its sheath and stared at its naked blade. It was flawless, elegant yet deadly, its 3-foot curved steel blade glimmering like a star in the night. See? Look at that, probably razor sharp. Suddenly, something made my nerves stand up on end. Turning around, I saw the goblin staring at me nervously as he backed away. Hey, wait! You and I aren't finished yet! I walked straight at him, grinning. Stay away from me! The goblin let out an embarrassingly un-monster-like scream, turned tail and ran. Oh well. Leaping forward, I slashed down at his back with the Muramasa. The sword split him in half. A viscous green liquid sprayed out everywhere, shooting upwards as high as the ceiling. A feeling of power shot through me. It was a rush like I'd never felt before. If an amateur like me could slice a body in two, their Muramasa must truly be a weapon of awesome power. Well, Grace, pretty nice, huh? Turning around, I saw Grace, covered in green slime, slumped on the ground and trembling. What's wrong? I took a step closer. No, stay away! What's the matter? With this Muramasa, I can kill every monster in here. Max, you look different. You're not the man I know. What are you talking about? You're the one who's acting weird. No, stay back. Throw that sword away. I was dumbfounded. Throw away this precious sword? This magnificent, perfect treasure? What was she talking about? What? My Muramasa? Never, never. Then I'm leaving. I don't want to be anywhere near this new Max. Well, if that's how you feel, then I won't force you to stay. Suddenly, I felt a strange sensation in my chest. Some weird energy began coursing into my body from the hands gripping the sword. Humans. Humans are more convenient. Muramasa spoke to me, almost like a voice in my head. More convenient? What does that mean? Grace and I locked eyes. Suddenly I understood what it meant. No! Her eyes widened in alarm as she shook her head. Muramasa let out a yelp, and I could feel it lifting my arm upwards. When I recovered my wits, I was standing at the foot of the basement stairs, my body sprayed with streaks of red and green liquid. I had no memory of leaving the dungeon. Where the heck was Grace, I wondered. She was with me just a minute ago. I had a vague recollection of doing something exciting, but I couldn't remember any details. Shaking my head, I climbed up the stairs. Mr. Forrest was standing there. When he saw me, his jaw dropped open in shock. Max? What the heck? Oh, so he spotted my Muramasa. More blood, more blood. Unbidden, my body began to move. Muramasa flicked out and suddenly Mr. Forrest's head was rolling on the floor. A triumphant shout rang out and reverberated through the inn. It was the shout of Muramasa and me. Our voices merged in unholy glory. Suddenly, a mournful scream destroyed our perfect harmony. I turned and saw Colleen standing in front of the dining room. I covered the 20 feet or so in the blink of an eye. I ran straight past her, slicing open her belly on the way. Suddenly, a mournful scream destroyed our perfect harmony. It was the wind. I was a cold, piercing wind, slicing through all that stood in my way. Suddenly the sword was silent. Its cry of joy, its bloodthirsty moan, I could no longer hear it. I gave up on being the wind and stopped in my tracks. The hilt that had seemed glued to my hand before suddenly twisted from my grip, embedding itself in the floor at an angle. I went back over everything that I had felt had happened since I picked up the Muramasa sword. I killed the goblin, slaughtered Grace, and then Mr. Forrest, Colleen, Faberge, and finally Abby. Was I dreaming the whole time? Was this all just some kind of horrible nightmare? I stared at my hands. They were soaked in blood. I staggered forward. I was on the second floor. Peering through an open door, I saw the 3 girls lying dead on the floor like discarded garbage. I looked away and ran down the stairs. There, I found a headless body that looked like Mr. Forrest near the disemboweled form of Colleen. Her guts spilled out all over the floor. It was no dream. That sword turned me into a deranged killer. And now, when there was no one left to slay, it had dropped from my hand. I killed everyone, even my Grace. What have I done? Grace, oh my God, Grace! I fell to my knees and collapsed on the floor. My body began to shake. What do I do now? If this was a dream, I'd hoped I'd wake up soon. When I looked up, the Muramasa blade I thought I'd left behind was lying next to me. To my surprise, it was no longer bloodstained like before. Instead, it was once again flawless and gleaming. I stretched my hand out like a man entranced. The sword stood up on its hilt, its tip touching against my throat. If this was a dream, then that ought to wake me up. If it wasn't a dream. Either way, I didn't care. I squeezed my eyes shut and leaned forward with all my weight. I actually forgot about that ending. But I like it. I do like that one, actually. And, you know, you could even go a little bit farther into this. I'm not sure if this was originally intended, of course, but you can even go a little bit farther into this. Just with that little comment he made about how he was the wind slicing through things. You could almost say that he was the Banshee in this situation. They were talking about how the Banshee had the power to slice through glass and cut flesh. You could almost say it was kind of like that a little bit. That was an interesting one. Alright, so the rest of these are going to be extremely fast. It's basically going to be like one screen of text. So let's go back, and I will probably be saving and going back on saves a lot, so it'll look like I'm not making any progress because the text will go back to being unread, but it'll be a lot faster this way, I think, if I'm doing it right.